Welcome to Just Curious Media. This is That's a Crime. I'm Jason Connell.
And I'm Sal Rodriguez.
All right, Sal, we are back with another crime. An update, I might add.
I like updates because updates implies we're going to hear some sort of justice occurring, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, we always say we're going to do an update or we're going to keep an eye on a case. And case in point, we have one here. Because today we are breaking down the true crime story of Family Feud contestant joked he regretted marrying his wife, then murdered her in 2023. Update. This wasn't that long ago that we did this episode. And it's sad, but it has a lot of pop culture and quirkiness to it. We kind of talked about Family Feud, and we're not going to do a deep dive on that front, like explaining what the show is, the famous show that has families go head to head against each other. And we actually played the clip of him on the Family Feud on that first episode, if you recall.
Yeah. And this is Steve Harvey era Family
That's
Feud.
right. That's right. The murderer, perpetrator is Timothy Bliefnick. And it's a very sad crime. He murdered his estranged ex-wife. I know they both had filed restraining orders against one another. They had 3 children, and he killed her in cold blood. You know, and you watch the video of himself, you remember it, clean-cut guy, kind of charming, good looking. And then I saw like images of him, in jail, in the jail cell or getting booked. It's like night and day. This guy looked deranged, completely different, went down a deep, dark path and never came out of it.
Well, Jason, I'm reminded when you mention a mugshot of the infamous Paul Rubens, rest in peace, mugshot. And
Rest in peace.
definitely remember the Paul Rubens mugshot looked very different from Pee Wee Herman himself.
That's right. Well, we might look different if we ever had a mugshot. I'm sure it's
Yes.
not your finest moment. There's that. But this guy looked like, no offense, but Dog the Bounty Hunter. No offense to him, but it looked like night and day. Clean cut guy, long hair, strung out. Something's not right with this guy.
Goatee he had at that time.
Yeah, goatee, exactly. So, it was eye-opening and just really tragic. So it's no surprise that he was found guilty, thank goodness. But what we didn't know was the sentencing, and that's what's come to light here. So we highly encourage all fans to go back and visit that episode. We really break it down, the case, in a lot more detail. I have all the notes from that one too, but we're not trying to redo that episode. We're just trying to pick it up, an addendum to that episode. So here is the news. On August 11th, 2023, Timothy Bliefnick was sentenced to life in prison for murdering his wife. There you go, Sal. Life in prison. Now, I know sometimes life isn't life, but it's still a long time, and he'll probably not see the light of day.
Well, when it comes to life sentences, I think the implication is 25 to life. So a person that receives a life sentence will serve at least 25 years, but maybe not their entire life.
True, but yeah, that's true. He's in his 40s. He could get out, but this is a pretty heinous crime. I don't think they're going to be rushing him out the door anytime soon. Also, by the looks of him, but I'm not going to pass judgment. I believe he got the sentence he deserved, and prosecutors revealed that Bliefnick researched how to commit the February murder, which is this year, on Google, including techniques to force open windows and police response times. So, this was premeditated, and he followed through. And some things came to light here that I wasn't even aware of. And this judge, which we're going to get into, I really commend this judge for the statement he makes, which you'll be reading. But Adams County, Illinois, the judge is Robert Adrian. And during the sentencing, he condemned Bliefnick's premeditated and research and planning and all of that. And Sal, please do the honors of sharing the judge's words.
When I first read this, Jason, it seemed a bit theatrical because he literally goes through every gunshot.
Right.
But at the same time, does express the gravity.
Yeah.
And lets the viewer and listener know exactly what happened. I mean, this wasn't just shooting someone once.
No.
It wasn't that.
Like, I'm mad. I'm enraged. And
Yeah.
no, this is not that. And when you read through it in a dry run before we got going, it impacted me hearing you read it. Like, wow, okay. It's heavy.
You practiced this murder. You broke into her house and you shot her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 times. I don't know how long it took you to do that, but some of those shots were fired while she was lying on the ground. And you did all of that while your children were upstairs at your house, lying snug in their beds.
Mm. Whew, that's tough. And good job on reading that, but it's very, very tough. And that courtroom had to just be silent. Here's a judge speaking, and I partly would have liked to seen Bliefnick's expression during this, and then partly not, right? But very powerful. Now, one thing came to light here, and again, facts come out. The earlier facts were what they were because there wasn't very many. But one thing I had read and we talked about was Rebecca, how she was discovered where her 3 kids were at school and she didn't come get them. And now the judge's comments speak to the kids being upstairs sleeping, her 3 sons. So again, I'm not sure. Maybe they found out more information and it happened at night. I don't know. But whatever it is, for him to say that, I'm assuming that's factual.
And I think the implication is that the children were living with him at the time and not with his estranged wife because they were estranged, whatever that means. There are a lot of details about this case that we are still missing. Motive, we don't know any of that. They had both filed restraining orders against each other. We don't know anything about that. So there's definitely a lot of information about this case that I would like to learn more about, and hopefully will reveal itself later.
Yeah, I do think they were living with Rebecca, our victim here, but I'm not sure. But again, that was one little thing like, she didn't show up to school to get the kids. That's what set off the alarm bells. Where is she? But now this is new information. So it could have happened. Maybe they figured out it was at night, not during the day, and then they didn't go to school. I don't know. The case, that's neither here nor there. The boys are okay, which is good, but their mother was killed in cold blood.
Jason, that just occurred to me. When in cases like this, it's not uncommon for children to be killed too. The
right.
person seeks vengeance on the spouse for whatever reason, kills the spouse, kills the kids too. We saw that with that guy in Colorado. Yeah. That famous case from a couple years ago.
That's right.
Yeah, killing the spouse, killing the kids. So yes, thankfully the kids are safe.
Yeah. Now they've lost their mother. They've also lost their father. Maybe they lost him before this, but it's not a good situation. I feel for Rebecca, her family, and those boys for sure. Absolutely. So that spawned me to look at the GoFundMe, because that's one thing we wrapped up the last episode with, and which is a beautiful thing that Rebecca's sister, Sarah Riley, put this up. So we revisited it just a second ago. We hadn't been there since we recorded the episode. And they are at $115,000 raised of a goal of $250,000, which I'm assuming is going to go help out the family and these 3 sons of Rebecca's. And Sarah also has a beautiful statement. She's the organizer of this, and we'll kind of split the statement up. Another powerful statement from someone, and this person close to Rebecca, our victim, and equally tough to get through, but we will do our best. Here we go. We should not have to suffer a life without Becky, who was robbed of her life in the most hateful, cowardly, and cruel way. Her boys were robbed of a loving, devoted mother. I was robbed of my sister and best friend. My parents were robbed of their daughter, and as a parent myself, I cannot imagine a greater torture. Becky was a niece, an aunt, and a cousin, a friend, a colleague, and a caregiver.
All those who love her carry heavy heartache in the wake of this tragedy. The judicial process cannot bring her back, nor can it heal our wounds. but we are relieved that the verdict delivers justice, and we are thankful for all who made it a reality.
Mm. I know we can't talk to our victims. It's very sad. Or the sons are just too young. But this is a beautiful statement from Sarah Riley. And I was just thinking about this, Sal. We do visit GoFundMe's from time to time when they're there and they're relevant to the episode. But I hope that this episode, we do a little bit and maybe we spark some more donations. I mean, there was some as recent as yesterday. There's about 972 donations overall. So I mean, just thinking about these kids growing up with, here they have a family, and then the family separated, which isn't uncommon, and then boom, they have neither parent. And it's just like, that is another sadness on top of a sadness of losing someone far too young and the impact of that. So I would love to see, just if it helps, I mean, monetary, these weren't probably very wealthy people. I don't know, but every little bit helps, especially in a time of need.
Yeah, you know what? I hadn't really summarized that in my mind about these kids are now orphans, so they lose
Yeah.
their mother, and effectively, as you mentioned earlier, they lose their father too. So the kids now become orphans. When I look at GoFundMe's, I used to think of, oh, it covers funeral, but
Right.
there's a lot more than that. I
A
mean,
lot more.
if you're looking at kids, young children who are now orphans, lost both their parents,
Mm-hmm.
some of this money goes to the funeral, sure, but then you have what, trust fund. These kids are going to need. They're going to need, things needed for survival: food, clothing, shelter, at least till they're 18. So I believe that some of this does indeed go to their actual well-being and growing into adulthood.
Yeah.
I think there's some sort of trust fund that goes after the GoFundMe then.
Yeah, this is really tough. Even if the grandparents can take these kids in, or Sarah, if she's married, and even bringing 3 boys into your home, there's expenses. Even just saying, "Hey, I'm up for it. I can do it. Do you have enough size? Do you have this? Do you have?" So this is even a drop in the bucket. Like, honestly, people get millions for hot coffee spilling on them. They deserve a lot more, but this is kind, and maybe there is money coming from other sources, but this is a beautiful thing GoFundMe represents. And I think it's great. So there's just that. We've never really done a deep dive on that in particular, but it just hit me tonight thinking about it. And, I am also, I guess I'm pleased to know that justice was served in my thinking. He's put away. He doesn't need to be on the streets. We can revisit this in 25 years and see. I don't even think he deserves to be walking the streets after that, based on what he's capable of doing and has done. But I am happy that we kept this on our radar and came back and kind of put a addendum to the episode.
Yes, Jason. Such a horrible act,
Mm-hmm.
a horrible act, and then such a rookie move. Googling. I mean, doesn't everybody know by now that search history is going to be part of the court proceedings? I mean, you don't just go Googling how to kill your spouse, and this guy did that. So,
Wow.
sometimes, what I've noticed, Jason, as a person who's followed true crime for many years,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes people out themselves. People prosecute themselves is what happens in cases like this.
That's true. Well, when they get to this point, Sal, I wouldn't say they're of sound mind, right? I mean, we've had an episode recently that a mother ousted herself, caught herself because she was signing up on a fake website called Rent a Hitman
Oh
to
yes,
kill
yes.
her own kid. It's a fake site, but it's like a trap, like a Venus flytrap. You go in there, you plug in your details, and the cops got her. Yeah, you're not thinking clearly. Thank goodness, right? Unfortunately, Timothy did do it. He did act on it. And I am glad that he's not skating free because he gamed the system. I'm glad that they make their mistakes, but in this case, it's unfortunate he wasn't stopped before it happened. And again, they both had restraining orders, Sal, and I get it. You got a restraining order. You can't put a lot of merit in a restraining order. You
No.
can't, unless you have an armed guard, and even then in movies it never works, but unless you can afford to have that 24-hour surveillance, they don't do a lot when someone's coming for you.
No, because when it comes to restraining orders, I remember there's a couple of years ago where I was very close to filing a restraining order
Yeah,
on
you mentioned
somebody,
this.
and then I thought, okay, I could do that fine, but then I thought, well, that doesn't that doesn't stop the person.
No.
It doesn't stop them. It maybe only adds some sort of validity to a case afterward, maybe.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah,
Like, well, he did have the restraining order against this
yeah,
person.
it doesn't prevent something from happening.
I know. Well, that is all I have, Sal. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, just want to say rest in peace, Becky. So
Yes.
sorry that this happened, and I hope that your children are going to be okay, and I hope that
Yeah.
they're going to have a happy and healthy life, and be able to move on from this, and you'll be reunited with them one day.
Absolutely. So that covers the true crime story of the Family Feud contestant joked he regretted marrying his wife, then murdered her in 2023 update. So thank you so much for listening, and please be sure to subscribe to the That's a Crime podcast and the That's a Crime YouTube live channel. You can also really help us by giving this show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast.
And for all you listeners that enjoy sharing your thoughts, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, send us a direct message, or post a comment on any That's a Crime social media platform.
We also highly recommend checking out our other podcast and visiting justcuriousmedia.com.